When I was invited to this conference, I asked myself what I could contribute. As an anthropologist, as a social anthropologist, I'm accustomed to reason on the basis of the ethnography, what we call ethnography, which means long-term empirical research on the ground and starting from the grassroots, which could be ordinary people, which will be elite. The grassroots, by the grassroots, I intend people we work with and from whom we get information. So I went back to look at my research findings to see what I could contribute. And what I'm about to say ramifies is a concept that ramifies into all the three main questions. Which I summarized as first one, a power over the individual trust. Second, specialization as a business strategy, and the third one summarized as when rules are broken on trust and governance stop working. In a sense, what I'm about to say links to what the previous speaker mentioned. What happens when people, ordinary people, the population in Western democracy, in a democratic system, are feel treated as a sheep, as people whose opinion and vote doesn't really count. I'll give you an example. As an anthropologist, I work by real stuff, as I said. So let's talk about. Let me give you an example. Italy, between 2010 and 2022, 12 years, during which the country has been ruled by governments which were not truly elected. What I mean by this? I mean that parties that didn't win the elections after the election got together and formed a government, which obviously was not the government for which the electors, the people who had elected each of those parties, had voted for. But that was already a breakage of the democratic covenant between citizens and the state. But the second break was when these governments were led by unelected people. So they picked people from somewhere out of the blue, and they became prime ministers, they became ministers, secretaries of state, and ran the country for that period of time. So over 12 years, this is what has happened in Italy. And over that time, I was doing research among ordinary people and the elite as well. And the general feeling was, well, why should I bother to go and vote when my vote counts for nothing? So when the vote, not just my vote, but the vote of the electorate counts for nothing. Now, bear in mind that most times in Italy, the elections happen during the summer. So people say, well, why should I bother? I'd rather go to the beach. And now that is a very grave, and a highly important and grave break of trust between citizenship and governance. So this is, I can say more in terms of the market, what happens when these affects the market, but these perhaps these affect appears to the other sections or the other questions. So I will not carry on with this. But on the other hand, the opposite of what has happened in Italy, the mirror image of what has happened over the years seems to be about to happen in the UK, where I also have done research for a long time. The present government, Labour government, was elected on a specific manifesto and led by a specific person. Now, the manifesto, the person was Starmer, the present prime minister, who is has now resigned and is about to go, and they got a very large majority. Now, the prime minister has resigned because his government has worked very badly and made a lot of bad mistakes, and also made policies which were the opposite of what they had promised in their manifesto. So he has resigned, and now he seems to be about to be replaced by someone who is a member of parliament, a new member of parliament, but has not been elected as prime minister. So the argument is that he should, once he takes office, he should call new elections and be elected to govern, to run the country on the basis of a new manifesto, his own manifesto, and so on. If he doesn't do that, that is a break of trust, a break of the covenant between citizens and the state. Parallel to what I've just said, think of over-regulation and all the bureaucratic weight that happens to be put on the shoulders of people who work independently of entrepreneurs and so on. Think of that. Now, all that plays a great role in producing de facto second-class citizens. In other words, if I do not have the resources, money, to pay for experts who keep my business safe from rules and regulations, which are many thousands of rules and regulations. If I do not have that kind of resource, I'm in trouble. So what do? I probably prefer to work informally in the shadows. I prefer not to use the labels like a black economy and so on and so forth because they are all very stupid labels. But basically, I choose to work informally. That is another break of trust between the between people and the state. And finally, for now, the what happens is that people react using all real people react using informal networks, informal forms of action, and so on. So they become independent of the set of rules and formal rules and regulations and relationship with the authorities. So they become independent of. At that point, there is a further. This is a further reason to say why should I bother to vote? Why should I? Why? Because voting also implies hoping. So hope is part of the voting system. So as an elector, I vote in the hope that I will have an impact. My vote will have an impact on a better, an improvement of things, or whatever, a better government, or whatever it is. So that break of trust between these two important entities of the democratic system develop to different ramifications. And these are, I've mentioned two. There is a third one on which perhaps we can discuss later. Any more you want me to say on these to expand with examples and real life examples, I will be happy to do so.